Justin Fields is not a Falcon. Bill Belichick is not a Falcon. Dallas Turner is not a Falcon. Those are all statements that I may or may not have said something to the likes of over the last few months. So to make up for those incorrect statements, it is time for me to atone. We will have my punishment tomorrow, Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central. Come throw tomatoes at me tomorrow. I guarantee you'll have a great time. Welcome on in to Falcons Today. Coming up on today's episode, we're going to check out some winners and losers from Falcons Minicamp, which ran from June 10th to the 12th. The media was only allowed to come for the 11th, and then the 12th was kind of like a fair family day from what I read. So ultimately, not a lot of real gridiron in between the lines to talk about stuff, but we do have some winners and losers coming out of minicamp that I'm excited to share with you guys. So our first winner from Falcons minicamp, and some of this kind of gets just rolled into the entire spring practice as a whole, it's Kirk Cousins. This one is a bit of a no-brainer, and I know quarterbacks always get the front page, they get the biggest headline, but in this case, it is deservingly so because everyone has had only good things to say about the new quarterback, Kirk Cousins. Bijan Robinson said, I don't think I've really had somebody sit me down and tell me how to do things like he does. The cool thing about him is having a quarterback who studies so much. His quarterback coach, TJ Yates, says, it was good for the players in the room to open up their eyes that this guy is about business. When we talk about prototypical franchise quarterback, that's it. Even his own backup quarterback, Taylor Heinicke, said, he's probably one of the most professional quarterbacks I have worked with. Just how he does everything, how he talks to guys, it's really impressive to see. And then the Athletics beat reporter for the Falcons, Josh Kendall, wrote, Cousins commands the room, Pitts said. Running back Tyler Algier marveled at Cousins' confidence to know what he's doing. Veteran offensive lineman Jake Matthews called him just a guy who is on top of it. It has been a Kirk Cousins love fest. You would think it's the Alabama Falcons because of how much they love Cousins. He has been the biggest star of the show so far. He has been the biggest leader in that room since Matt Ryan a few years ago. And it's very much needed because this is a young offensive core. Bijan, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. Those are not veteran players. And you kind of had, and this is a crude way of putting it, the blind leading the blind last year with Desmond Ridder, a rookie running back, a second-year wide receiver, a third-year tight end. And no offense to Desmond Ridder, because I do think he had some really good leadership qualities, but he was learning on the fly, and it's tough for your quarterback, your running back, your wide receiver, your tight end to kind of all be learning things at once. Insert Kirk Cousins with a decade plus of experience, and he can bring along the rest of the crew, right? Verbal meme, it's like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles where you've got the old man bringing along the young turtles. That's Kirk Cousins right now with Bijan, Drake, and Pitts. And then in 2 or 3 years, those guys will be bringing Kirk Cousins along. So that's why Kirk Cousins is the first winner from Falcons minicamp. First loser. I'm going to go with Arthur Smith. Not trying to bring up our ex too much, and I like Arthur Smith, and I'm probably one of the more Arthur Smith defenders out there in the world, but he unfortunately did kind of catch some strays, we'll put it, throughout Falcons minicamp. I mean, Drake London said we'll be passing the ball way more this year. Wonder what he was talking about in that sentence. Bijan Robinson and the Falcons coaching staff said that Bijan will be more of a runner this year, which is kind of an odd statement, right? Of course, he's a running back. Why wouldn't he be a runner? That's a little bit like our quarterback's going to be more of a passer. Okay, I sure hope so. He's the quarterback. But I think when you take it a step further and look a little bit deeper into what the Falcons mean by this, I think what they're really hinting at is, yeah, Bijan's not going to be the slot anymore. And Arthur Smith had a vision for Bijan to be a do-it-all back, a receiving back, put him in the slot because they only had one good wide receiver last year, and Bijan was second amongst all running backs in snaps in the slot. I would be surprised if he finishes top 5 this season, based on where the signs are pointing towards what to expect out of a role for Bijan Robinson. Now, I think you could probably make it a safe bet to wait until September to have a good idea, or even an accurate idea, I should say, as to what Bijan Robinson's role will look like in 2024. But for now, it does feel like the Falcons are going to pull back on Bijan being a receiver and let him focus on being a running back. So, unfortunately for Arthur Smith, he kind of caught some strays during the last few weeks as to what he envisioned in Bijan Robinson and what Raheem Morris and his coaching staff envisioned in Bijan Robinson. Not so much a receiving back, but a running back, and at its truest form, a rusher, not a receiver. Who is your favorite Falcons running back all time, though? For me, I would go with Michael Turner. I had a nickname for him last video, and some of you guys clearly did not play with Michael Turner and Madden enough to know that nickname was definitely true. But still, who is your all-time favorite Falcons running back? Get in the comment section below. I want to hear from everyone watching. Second winner, I'm going to go with Clark Phillips, the cornerback entering year number 2 out of Utah, because he is the early front runner for that CB2 job opposite of A.J. Terrell. And we've talked about Clark Phillips a couple of times here on the show, but if you're just kind of tuning in for the first time this spring and you want the spark notes, well, when it comes to the Falcons secondary, you got A.J. Terrell locked up at CB1. The other 2 jobs are definitely training camp battles to watch for, but my money is on Clark Phillips winning CB2 and D. Alford winning that nickel job. I also think it's fair to say you can expect a heavy and consistent cornerback rotation, right? The Falcons are going to use Mike Hughes at CB2. They might kick Clark Phillips inside a little bit. They're going to get a lot of different looks because that's their job. They need to find the best and most successful combination in the cornerback room. The only corner piece they have in their puzzle is A.J. Terrell. Everyone else is a little bit of a loosey-goosey puzzle piece that can be bended and put in different spots. So for the foreseeable future, or at least in training camp, expect to see a consistent rotation for that first-team defense in the secondary. But Clark Phillips does have the job, I would say, for the time being. It's his to lose, so to speak. Last year, we saw more of him in the second half of the year, finished the season altogether with 27 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 5 pass breakups. Meanwhile, former first-round draft pick from the Minnesota Vikings, Mike Hughes, he is probably second in line for that CB2 job. Last season for Atlanta, 21 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and 1 pass breakup. So keep an eye on these 2 cornerbacks, but for now, I think Phillips has the edge, which makes him a winner coming out of minicamp. Second loser I've got, and this one's definitely going to get the viewers riled up. Rookies, kinda. I know that everyone just wants to be told good news about their favorite team, and no one really wants to hear anything mean or critical about them. But I do think it's time to, I wouldn't say it's time to have this conversation, but I just want people to kind of have their eyes and ears open to this. It's kind of been crickets from the rookie class through OTAs and minicamp. And that's not too shocking because their first-round draft pick was a backup quarterback for this year, right? We're not going to see a whole lot of Michael Penix with the first-team offense. Their second pick was a defensive tackle, which it's hard to make headlines as a defensive tackle in non-padded practices, right? You're not allowed to tackle anybody. Well, that's his job, so how is he supposed to separate and stand out from the group? But altogether, no rookie has really jumped out and grabbed my attention. So it's not completely fair to them since a lot of them are either defensive linemen who aren't allowed to make any contact, or you've got Michael Penix, who is a backup quarterback, and that's the plan, right? You are investing in Penix long-term with the acceptance that he's likely not going to have a big role or really any role whatsoever in 2024. Now, it did look like he was running with the third and fourth team offense, which that's not too unexpected for rookie quarterbacks, especially when you already have a dominant QB1 like Kirk Cousins, where there's just no need to try and see if Penix can push Cousins for that starting role. You know, it would be one thing if it was kind of like when Russell Wilson was drafted by the Seahawks. And sure, Seattle had just signed Matt Flynn, but they signed Matt Flynn to like a $30 million contract, not a $180 million contract. Same goes for like Mitch Trubisky when he was drafted by the Bears. Sure, they just signed Mike Glennon with that huge neck, and then when they took Justin Fields with Andy Dalton, like those aren't apples to apples comparisons. So unfortunately for Penix, he just doesn't have the runway to really shine and prove that he was the best pick of the draft because he's not going to run with the first team offense all that much. So once again, we can just kind of revisit the Falcons draft class. It's tough for guys on the defensive line like Rukaroro, Braylon Trice, Brandon Dorlus. Those are just players that likely aren't going to be able to kind of separate themselves from the rest of the pack because they are defensive tackles. They're not allowed to touch the quarterback. What do you want them to do in minicamp and OTAs to prove their worth? So unfortunately for them, they kind of land on the loser list, but we at least give them a question mark to let that defend themselves. All right, let me ask you this question, though, before we get to the final winner. Which rookie will have the biggest impact this season? Get in the comment section below. I do want to hear from everyone watching. Who do you think it's going to be? Is it going to be defensive tackle Rukaroro from Clemson? Braylon Trice was running with the second-team defense during stretches of minicamp, so he would be a name to watch for. I think he's most likely to have the biggest amount of wow plays because he does headhunt the quarterback for a living. Third and final winner, I'm going to go with Taylor Heinicke. A little bit out of the box here, but we're just looking at minicamp. I think you would be inaccurate to not report Heinicke as some level of a winner because, sure, on most people's depth charts, Michael Penix is QB2, and that may very well be the case when September gets here and we're ready for week 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But for now, I think it's Taylor Heinicke that is QB2, maybe not on paper, but on the practice field. So I do expect Michael Penix to ultimately win that QB2 job, but from what we saw at minicamp and OTAs, Taylor Heinicke was second-string quarterback, and Michael Penix was working on the side field with the third and fourth team offense. Obviously, there is a lot of time between now and the NFL regular season where things can change, and I do think they will change. But if we're just evaluating minicamp, I think you got to give the nod to Taylor Heinicke for holding on to that backup quarterback position for the time being. All right, one more time, I will be atoning my incorrect predictions tomorrow, Thursday, June 13th, 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central. It is what the people have been asking for. It is long overdue, but most importantly, it is time because I said if Dallas Turner is not a Falcon, I will get drunk on live YouTube. And here we are. So come hang out with us. Enjoy happy hour. I don't think I'll have a great happy hour. I'll probably be overserved, but that's what I get for declaring Dallas Turner a Falcon prematurely. All right, that will do it for us on today's show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Appreciate everyone for watching all the way to the end of the video. You know who you are. If you're going to be tuning in tomorrow for our live show, drop an ATL for me in the comment section.